Welcome to The Real Math of Business with Eleanor Bennett, where you plus this podcast equals better decisions. I'm Eleanor Bennett, speaker, author, and leadership expert. I work with chief executive officers and chief financial officers really to help them create universally investable companies where people serve people. And the math just works. This week, I'm chatting with the amazing Donna McGeorge. But first, here is my thought-provoking question. So here in Australia, we're still in the midst of our summer holidays, where typically in the past, I'll say the whole economy, that sounds very big, but a lot of businesses just kind of shut down. Like it's very, very sleepy, very, very tired. Pretty much everyone's on leave, celebrating Christmas, celebrating New Year's, and generally hanging out by the beach. I had the privilege of spending New Year's Eve and a couple of days before in Sydney. I was going with some friends over from the US to spend on Sydney Harbour watching the quite infamous Sydney New Year's Eve fireworks. And so had the opportunity to spend those few days around, on the either side of New Year's in the city. And what I found really interesting was all of the shops were open right up until the 31st, but then on the 1st, which is, a public holiday, many businesses were open, but so many so that I thought it was strange that some of them weren't. Like I just thought public holiday, no one's going to be working, nothing's going to be open. But of course, if everyone else is on holiday, it does actually make good maths sense to open to serve all of those people that are on holiday. But then I thought it was really interesting that you would have many, many, many big names that were open and then several big names that weren't. And I thought that's interesting. Related, but talking about individuals now, I was then on a holiday up north with a group of friends, and we were talking about the time off that we were having over the summer period. And again, what I learned is that some people were working all the way through. They were having, the second and third off, or a few days in that very first week of January off, but then they were back to work on the 5th. And again, I thought, gosh, this is so strange. What used to be kind of this blanket, everyone takes, at least a couple of weeks off over the Christmas New Year period. Suddenly, there were people that were working pretty much all the way through, which, in the past has been unheard of. And so it sort of got me thinking, like, this whole being opened and closed and showing up for work, not showing, having time off, going to work, all the rest of it. Like, what's going on here? This is really strange. My previous perception that kind of everything shut down, everyone went on holiday over the summer, sort of got busted a little bit and blown up over this New Year's break. And I think, obviously, we've talked a lot in the past in the market in Australia around the cost of living crisis, the impact of inflation, the impact of interest rates. We're still talking about, groceries being more expensive, travel more expensive, all the rest of it. And I think at the end of the day, people are just choosing their own ways to do the things they need to do. And I think that's really what my thought-provoking question is about this week, which is to ensure you achieve your goals, to ensure you are successful, where are you going to show up? And most importantly, where are you not going to show up to be most successful and achieve your goals this year? And now to our chat with Donna McGeorge. Well, hello, and it's an absolute pleasure today to be welcoming Donna McGeorge to the podcast today. Donna is a sought-after international speaker and best-selling author of 15 books, including The 25-Minute Meeting, First 2 Hours, One Day Refund, ChatGPT Revolution, and her latest book, Red Brick Thinking. Donna helps leaders and teams to cut through noise, creating space and capacity for what's most important in their lives. Her work has been featured in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Fast Company, and on national TV. Whether with 20 leaders behind closed doors or 2,000 in a packed auditorium, Donna delivers high-energy sessions filled with sharp insights, relatable stories, and immediately actionable ideas. with no jargon, no fluff. I cannot wait for today's conversation with no jargon and no fluff today, Donna. I was telling you before we went live that I've been a bit of a fan of yours for a very long time now. I think for, what are we in 2026, 9 years now. I have been a bit of a lurker in the background, watching your stuff, getting your books. So this is a real special moment for me. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, look, it's my pleasure. And now I've got pressure. You've been stalking me for years, or following my work rather. And I kind of have to remind myself now because, 9 years. Gosh, that feels like a long time since we met
Yes,
originally.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I thought actually, so, and going through your bio and reflecting on the books that you've written, like 15 books, that's incredible. I did actually thought that we might start through the lens of your books. You know, The Real Math of Business. What I love about these conversations is really learning about every one of our guests' perspectives around what the real math of business is. You know, I sort of tend to look at it, it's 50% people, 50% maths, right? We want to create businesses where people serve people and the math just works. But that's just my view. That's not everybody's view. And everybody's way to make their real math of business work is different. So I thought, why don't we start by taking a bit of a trip down memory lane? Let's get to know you, the work you've done, and maybe through the lens of the books you've written, because I suspect, you know, obviously you've been around way longer than 9 years. Your view of what works has changed over the years. Does that sound all right as a place for us to start?
I reckon that sounds like an awesome way to go.
Which book should we start with?
Oh, gosh, look, I feel like I'm, David Copperfield. Do we start where I was born? So first of all, one of the things I say is I've written 15 books, but the first 7 or so were a bit rubbish. They were, look, I'm not saying that self-published books are rubbish. That's not at all what I mean. But from my perspective, every book I've written, I was wanting to learn an aspect of publishing. And as I learned more as I went with each book, they got better and better and better, as you would expect. And so the maths around that is that in my case, it took 15 books to get to, well, actually 14, because my biggest selling book was the ChatGPT one. So it took about 14 to get to there. But behind all of that was a pile of learning and growth that sat in and behind making all of those happen. So I think let's start with when my books started to really become popular and when my positioning started to be built, and that would be the 25-minute meeting. And there's some solid maths in that.
Yeah, that's
solid
it.
Maths.
So tell us about why you felt that book needed to be written. How was that going to help the people, your market, solve for problems that they were experiencing at the time, and how that contributed to the math of business?
So, look, I think any of your listeners now, if I said to them, how do you feel when a meeting gets cancelled? They'd probably be jumping up and down and squealing with joy. And that's really the reason I wrote the book, is that despite the fact that most people would rather live without meetings, we still keep having to have them because it's how we transact our business mostly. But the need for the meeting doesn't go away, but how they're run, how long they are, who shows up, all of that stuff needed a lot of work. And so the genesis of the idea came, I was working up in China for a large global automotive manufacturing company that used to be based in Geelong, but, we don't mention any names. And they, their world was meetings. And one of their most senior global directors said to me once in a session that I was running, it's possible to have a career here and just go from meeting to meeting and not actually do anything. And that was a bit of a spark for me. I thought, that's crazy. How can that be a thing? And secondly, I was in meetings all the time. So I started to play around with meetings and experiment and see, everyone just defaulted to an hour. Even when I would leave a gap between meetings, like I'd say I've got an hour here and I'd leave a 15-minute gap so that I could, get to meetings and go to the bathroom and stuff. People would then try and book the gap. So there was this definite meetings culture that was not that great. So I started experimenting with timings. How short could a meeting be and I still get work done? And 25 minutes started to be the one. So people would book an hour with me, but we'd all be done in 25 minutes. And can I tell you, people loved that because they'd get this free time back. And so now they'd have 35 minutes that they didn't have in their diary before where they could play catch-ups, etc. So that's where the root of that one came from. That and running leadership programs all across Asia Pacific where meetings, you know, when you'd say, what's the biggest time waste do you have? Meetings was
Yeah.
the thing they would talk about all the time.
Have you got, and I'm sure you have, those people that go, oh, fantastic, we finished with 35 minutes to go. Let's use that time.
Oh, yes, I
Tell
actually
me
had
what you
one.
say.
I had one when I was doing my experiments. And I said, oh, okay, we're finished in 25 minutes. And she goes, oh, well, we have 35 minutes in the diary. What else could we talk about? And I said, nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to talk about. I'm going. Because that, for me, I think that is the most flagrant waste of time ever. And part of it
Isn't it?
is, have you booked the meeting for a purpose? Or are you just wanting to hang out with me or the people? And I think we get a bit lazy. Now, when I was writing the book, I wanted to use because there's models in all my books, and in one of my models, I wanted to use the word profligate, which is a shameless waste, right? Profligate, such a
Yeah.
great word. But my editor said, yeah, too old-fashioned, no one will know what it means. But for me, that is the most profligate thing you can ever do, is like if we book a 25-minute meeting and we're done in 10 minutes, of course we finish the meeting, because the core of what I'm talking about is there's a purpose for us to meet. And so I talk about that. By the end of this meeting, it would be great if we've achieved this, and
Yeah.
this. And if we achieve this, and this in 10 minutes or 25 or whatever, then we're out of
Yeah.
there. It's not just, oh, so what else could we do? Nothing. I'm out. Yeah.
So you coach leaders,
Yes.
and sometimes I get I just want to make the most of this time together. So we come in and we define the outcome that they're looking for and all of those things.
Mm.
And then they go, it's, kind of the same thing. And what I've heard from some people in the past, which I sort of buy into a little bit, to be honest,
Mm.
if we can get the outcome in half the time, you should pay me double the cost, right?
Well,
Because,
I'd love to do that too, but we
Yeah.
are in an economy where pretty much we're paid for time, right?
Correct. So tell me, and I think that's the point, right? Is I imagine through rolling out the book and the conversations that you've had before, during, and after the success of the book, you're actually redefining and educating people around their perception of time and value.
I would say that's true for all of my books. So the first three you mentioned were part of the It's About Time series. So that's 25-minute meeting, first 2 hours, 1 day refund. And all of them are asking people to rethink how they think about time. But with regard to your coaching thing, that happens to me all the time, right? I know my stuff, I'm efficient, I can help people,
Yeah.
right? And so I just bank the time. I just say to them, look, I feel like we're done here today. How are you feeling with that? Or is there anything else you'd like to talk to me
Yeah.
about? So a coaching session's a bit different to just a business meeting.
Yeah, that's
A business
right.
meeting, I'm done and I'm out and we're good.
Yep.
But if someone has paid for an hour of my time and we did resolve whatever they've come with in half an
Yes.
hour, then I will say, all right, so we can either bank this half an hour that we can use at another point in time, or you can call me, between now and our next session and we can use the time. Or is there something else you'd like to work on?
Yeah,
and I
amazing.
would say about 80% of people bank the time, because if they've come in
Right.
with an issue and they want to solve it. So as long as they don't feel like I just feel like for some people, it feels like they might be missing out. Now, I could be wrong around that, but yeah, they're paying me for an hour of my time. I feel like I need to give them an hour of my time.
That's right. That's right. So through the lens of that book, so people were jumping for joy. Oh my goodness, you've given me 35 minutes back in my day. How does that translate into math? Tell me about what your work has identified as the kind of tangible outcomes. I'm guessing because you probably attract similar type of people to me, which is people that want tangible outcomes.
Well, there's an actual dollar value against how much, what everyone's worth. So the cost of
Yeah.
the person sitting in the seat in a
Yes.
business, so whether you work out the hourly rate or whatever. And so
Yeah.
there's very good maths around this, which I'll do a little bit off the top of my head because
Amazing.
it's a bit hard. But let's say you're a medium-sized organization. You've got, I don't know, about 400 middle-ish managers who all earn approximately 100K-ish, a year, which is about $50 an hour. And then you work out how many hours they spend in meetings, blah, blah, blah. Let's just say it's about $10 million a year. If I was to be, and again, if anyone's sitting there listening to this with a calculator in their hand, there's actually in the book, there's a way you can calculate this. There's a whole formula. And so let's just say it's $1 million that we're using and that's what we would call opportunity cost. You know, the opportunity cost is because it's people cost. It's not a tangible cost. And when I say to people in your organization, who has the authority to sign off on $10 million expenditure? And most of the time the exec look around at me and go, well, none of us. It has to go to the board, right, if we're going to spend $10 million. I'm like, well, right now you're giving it to interns, to EAs, to anyone who wants to book meetings can just go ahead and book meetings.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, Harvard did a article around this that said that was even more cost that they found, like gazillions of dollars that they found in organisations, and that it was the interns who were spending all that money. And so the thing I say to them is, okay, first of all, you know, is it a bargain or a waste? Because we know we need meetings. Yeah. So let's just say we halve that cost. Let's just say it's $5 million. Is that still getting us the value and the return that we would want? And if the answer is yes, great. You know, if it's not, then what can we do about that? So it's not just about whether we spend what time we spend in meetings, it's the quality. So in your case, I would say the 50% maths is the 25 minutes, right? That's how much time we're spending. That's the tangibly bit. And then the people part of it is, and so do we understand the purpose? Have we got the right people? Are we using a process to run this meeting effectively so that we can get a great return on the investment of our time? So yeah, it's a costly thing.
And so with the companies and leaders that you've kind of taken through that body of work around time, what is the before and after state for them? Like at the end, like what are they celebrating? What are you guys high-fiving about?
Do you know, it's such a gradual and nearly... I don't want to say it's intangible because people get their time back. So what I get is, I remember one person sending me an email saying, I've just worked out, I've saved myself $3,000 this year just by cancelling one meeting. I'm like, yay, high five. So when people know the numbers, they celebrate that. Most people celebrate things like, I now have meetings free Fridays. So I was talking to a CEO yesterday that I've worked with, and she said, you know, her exec were complaining about too many meetings, and she was like, well, I have nearly every Friday free of meetings, and so they're getting me in again. Well, I've worked with her in a previous organisation. They're getting me in again to do work with her new exec. And so things like that they suddenly feel like they've got space and capacity to think and breathe. And so they're not currently 100% on 100%. They're not always, 100% on 100% of the time. So they celebrate having space and capacity is really what they talk about.
And what does that give them?
Opportunity. It's the, you know, at a micro level, it's I actually have space in my diary for an opportunity that's landed that in the past I might have said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm booked out for 3 weeks or something like that. Or it could be that a problem that we keep putting Band-Aids on. Yeah. Suddenly we can now say, you know what, I've got some time now to really think through what this might be. Or it could be that I'm increasing the level of reading I'm doing in my industry, so I'm just staying a little bit ahead of the curve rather than feeling like I'm always playing catch-ups against our competitors. So that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That's the big stuff. That's the big stuff because, you know, when
just from changing your meetings to 25 minutes.
You know, when I hear the word space and capacity, I mean, you're absolutely right. The outcome of that is opportunity, right? Because without space and capacity, you're just firefighting all of the time.
And your brain is constantly in a mode of catch up and, you know, a lot of cortisol in the system, a lot of adrenaline in the system. And all of those things mean that I'm not making the best quality decisions I could make. Yeah. And so when I have space and capacity, I have the opportunity to make better quality decisions, or at least do the thinking that could make that decision a better quality decision. And given most leaders, their job is decisions. Yeah, 100%. So that's all of the amazing stuff out of the 25-minute meeting, which is part of the It's About Time series. Where should we go next? Let's go to the first 2 hours because that's the one. probably hasn't sold as many as my other books, but it's the one that everyone says it changes their life. When people read it, it completely changes how they think about showing up for work and how they plan their days. And so it talks about how we have a body clock, and that the way in which our body works for most of us is that we are more mentally alert from the hours of about 9 till 12 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that then says, well, what are we using that time for? And if we know that about 80% of us fall into that category, are we using that time wisely? And so I always say that we should be protecting that time for our most important and impactful work. And there's
Yeah.
a swag of research to support this that says people are happier in the mornings, people are more influenceable, if that's the word, in the morning. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm wanting to sell my services to someone, morning meetings, the person on the other side of the table is more likely, I can't guarantee it, but more likely to buy from me in the morning than they are in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And so we suffer from decision fatigue by the afternoon. And when we have decision fatigue, the easiest answer is no. And so once we're tired in the afternoon, we're just, struggling. So
Yeah.
for those of us who are in positions, and just about all of us are in a position where we're selling something, whether
Yep.
it's a product or an idea or
Yep.
a concept, we really should be protecting the mornings for our most important conversations, work, thinking. So it's a very cool concept.
That is amazing because, I love talking about chronotypes and how we plan our days and energy flows during the day. And you will have read this for sure, Daniel Pink's book,
Yes,
When.
yes, yeah.
And he shares that research around the time of analyst calls.
Yes.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
And getting the positive response from
that's
analysts. It was an
exactly right.
HBR study, I think, or a Harvard
Yeah,
study.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
right. And you just think, gosh, because, and why that fascinates me, I do obviously a lot of my work with chief financial officers who, think numbers and those sorts of statistics are so objective. And, when you think about the other side and go, well, actually, we're talking about these numbers and share prices and all the rest of it being influenced by people,
Mm-hmm.
and the time of day these analyst calls are happening. Like this work, I can understand why this work out of this book, first 2 hours, is so important because it does actually influence so much, including these so-called objective market value stat type
But I
things.
think that's the big lie that we have been believing for a long time, that the world is so objective. When we
Yep.
know that all decisions are made in the subjective, if you will,
Yep.
the emotional parts of our brain, that's been already, studied, done, agreed, and put to bed. And so even when we try to make a really objective decision, good luck with that because we're
Yeah.
using emotional parts of our brain. Secondly, the time of day will determine the energy people bring to that. And
Yeah.
so I call it the whatever factor that says, it's 3 in the afternoon, we're making a big decision. Do we spend $5 million on this or $7 million on this? And someone goes, oh, do you know what? Let's just do the $5 million one. Because it feels like
Yeah.
that's and that kind of, oh, do you know what? Just whatever, just do
Yep.
that. Do project A. And that decision fatigue is costly. And I'm not saying we should have done the $7 million one, but we're not making the decision in the right state, if
Yeah.
I'm honest. Mm.
And so I'll ask the same question. What do you find those companies and leaders that you bring people through these ideas, what are they celebrating at the end of this?
They're celebrating getting the same amount of stuff done, but in less time and with less energy. So when we do the right things at the right time of day,
Yeah.
we still get through, because what happens is people try to do all the things any time of day.
Yeah.
And so when we say to ourselves, well, first of all, I'm going to protect the first 2 hours of my day, because I know that's the best time for me to do my thinking, my planning, my strategizing, or if I've got to
Yeah.
have a difficult conversation or I need to sell or influence. I just protect that because that's the best time. I know that doing my admin and my non-thinking and my repetitive, and frankly, this will make people vomit in their mouths when you hear it, when they're doing their email should be the afternoon. So just right now, everyone who's listening to this episode just went, what? We should be doing our email after lunch because we're
Yeah.
wasting a whole bunch of decisions. If we think decision fatigue, we've only got a set amount of decisions, and time that should be spent on other more deep work, right?
So
Go on.
go ahead.
No, you go.
You must have heard all of the objections.
Oh, totally. But,
Tell me,
my
so
work comes from email. I have to
correct. So
respond, blah, blah, blah.
tell me about the most common objections, the best objections that you've received and how you've addressed them, because I think that's what will be going on with the people listening to that. Oh, Donna, Donna, that's not going to
You
work for
don't
me because my
understand.
business is different. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And just so you
tell us
know,
about that.
I have worked across just about every business and industry you can imagine. I have heard it all. Now, unless you're in a call center or in some kind of customer response center, where actually, yes, you do have to be responsive. Let's just park that for a moment.
Okay, yep.
But I'm going to say a CEO or a CFO or a senior finance execs who listen to this, or just leaders, you absolutely have control over your work. What all you're telling me when you say, "Oh, but you don't understand," is that you are probably either have a dopamine addiction to your email, and you just feel, or you feel very important because you constantly got to be in your email,
Yes.
or you're not really behaving in a very strategic way. And sorry, now they're all hanging up and going, "I'm not listening to any of this
Yeah,
anymore."
that's right.
Right?
That's all right. We'll still have fun.
And so the maths of this, weird maths of this to some extent, is that about 90% of your email is junk. It's basically, your response is like, yes, yes, no, no, noted, noted, file, file, delete, delete, forward, forward, right? About 10% requires a considered response. And so when I say don't do your email till after lunch, it's the 90% I'm talking about. Just get that out of the way. You don't do that in the morning. So what I do is I do a quick scan of my email and I go, right, of the 60 emails that have come in, just to make the maths easy, there's 6 there that require a considered response. The others I'll do after lunch or while I'm eating a sandwich, which I know is a bit naughty, but I might do it while I'm eating a sandwich. And of those 6, I have a look and go, what thinking is needed for those? What else do I need from other people? If I need a lot from other people, I might immediately forward it on, say, hey, Eleanor, I need you to run a so-and-so report for this. Can you get it back to me later on this afternoon? So that then it's in train, right? It's underway. Others that I might schedule for that morning if it's really urgent. And again, be very careful about how we schedule urgent.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not. And sometimes I'll right click on the email and I'll save it as an appointment in my diary and I'll block the time to do the work, either the next morning or sometime later today or whatever, but I'll protect time for it. I don't just knee-jerk react to it, because what I want to avoid, and what all leaders should be avoiding, is letting your email run your day. That's the most operationally, tactically dumb way to run your business and run your world. You are in control of your email and your calendar, and you need to run it strategically, which means you're not at the mercy of it. So if we're still friends and you're still listening, thanks.
So I can't help but think, you talked about, kind of a filtering mechanism for your emails. Is this a perfect segue to go into, I don't want to accidentally miss a book, but is this the perfect segue into ChatGPT revolution?
It could be. It could be.
Is there a better path for us to go to get there?
No. I'm happy to go there because I'm conscious of time and, I'm happy to meander. We can come back if we've got time. It's all good.
I love that. And the reason why is, Google has just released the new, AI into the Gmail suite of tools. And, tell us about ChatGPT revolution in the context of the work that you've done.
Right. So the good news about the ChatGPT revolution is it really is a primer for anyone that wants to understand and use generative AI, mostly in the context of text. And there's been 2 editions. So we did an original edition, which was released in 2023. And then because everything changed so much, we did another one in 2024. So it's, and right now, you just said it. Google, I have not even looked into this yet. Google Mail has just introduced a whole bunch of suite. They reckon that it's now, but you never know what you read, but the article that I read about it said that it's now making ChatGPT and Canva obsolete almost. I'll be the best judge of that because they're 2 tools I really like. But so that's really what the ChatGPT revolution was about. And for people who I don't know anything about it, where can I get some help? How can I understand it? It's got a bit of history in there and then a whole bunch of tools and tips on how you use it. But for everyday folks in the office, I have it on every day, all day. I use it for a bit of ideation, for summary. I usually, and you would understand this because we met in a thought leader context, which means I'm a bit of an expert on productivity. So I don't get it to do my thinking on productivity for me. I say, here's what I'm thinking. Help me craft this. And so that's more how I use it, rather than because otherwise I wouldn't. If you're asking it to do things you're not an expert in, you wouldn't know whether you're getting rubbish, and there's plenty of rubbish there. So that's kind of how I use it. Here's what I've written in my LinkedIn post. Can you proofread it and make it sound a bit snazzier, kind of stuff?
Yeah.
But in my Outlook and in my Office suite, I've got what's it called? Copilot.
Yes.
And that's, once it catches up, it's going to be a game changer. All the things it says it's coming. So right now, I don't run meetings anymore without Copilot running, doing the summary of the meetings and the actions. So then I don't have to, really useful right now while I have a broken arm, because I don't have to write notes and things like that. So I can't imagine now why would anyone now run a meeting without having a Copilot or the Zoom AI or some kind of AI tool capturing the notes and summarizing them for you? That's straight up. Secondly, you can go in, depending on what level of Copilot you've purchased within your organisation. Of course, it can compose emails and stuff like that for you, but it can convert Word documents into PowerPoint presentations. It can create Excel formulas for you. It can do all the stuff that I'm a novice in Excel, for example, and I'll say, how do I make this cell? And I literally type it like that. How do I make this cell do this cell thing and get the result of this cell? And it gives me the formula. Now, I'd be lying if I said it worked every single time, because sometimes how I've described it's a bit off, but it gets me going. The other thing I can do is say, can you please go back and find every email from Eleanor and summarize what we've talked about? It's getting this close to me being able to say, Eleanor wants to book a meeting, a 2-hour meeting with me. Can you please go and find every situation where I'm free for 2 hours with a half-hour buffer on either side, because I never do back-to-backs. Right, so I've tried that a couple of times, and they say it can do it, but it's still a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
But we're getting close to that sort of stuff. There are other apps. If you're free, run your own business, and you're free to plug in all sorts of apps to your computer, you can. There are apps that will help you sort your emails given the criteria that you give them. And even, Outlook has been doing this for a while with the focused and other filtering for a while. So my advice is the advice from Microsoft, which is a bit self-serving on their part, I think, is you have to get into the habit of using it, whatever you use it for. And so because if you don't, you're being left behind. And this is particularly tricky for women. They're already seeing a new glass ceiling emerge where men seem to be, and there's articles on this, listeners can go Google them, where men seem to be embracing and using AI tools more, and women are now kind of getting a bit left behind that. So if you're a lady listening to this, get on it. Yeah.
Do they suppose why that is? Like, is there a hypothesis why that might be?
Do you know, there probably is, and now I can't remember it, which is a bit awkward, but there we go.
So I've just had the most random thought
I love
come
those.
to mind as you were talking. And that is, you've written this book about ChatGPT. I love the fact that it's a primer, because, I've heard the words purpose, outcome, intention, like all of those things in the context of time, meetings, and energy, right? And so one of the things that can go wrong with generative AI is if you don't have any of those things in mind, it will meander to dangerous places, using our language from before. But you've taken it, you've embraced it, you've provided some invaluable resources for people, and you have personally embraced it. And I can tell that you, your eyes lit up as you were talking about the tools that actually, and this might be a stretch, but it did come through to me as you were talking, may do the things that you were teaching people to do manually in the past.
Yes.
Where I'm going here is people like you, not you, but people like you, it's going to take my jobs. Well, actually, I think what I've heard is, yeah, it could have taken your job from 5, 10 years ago too, but you've embraced it and now you've created something new from it. And you're staying up to date. And I mean, I'm not sure if that's something that you've consciously thought of before, but I'm looking at you going, wow, this, like, you're an excellent role model of how to embrace, these new changes and advancements in generative AI as a way to elevate your thinking and your work and not the opposite.
And there's, the old cliche, AI is not going to take your job. Someone who embraces AI will take your job, which is so
Yeah,
bloody cliched,
yeah.
and I'm sick to death of hearing it. But I had not even had that insight until you just said that. This notion that in the past, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I might have taught people how to take minutes at a meeting, and that was my job. Or all my job was to take minutes at meetings and
Yep.
stuff like that. And so now you're absolutely right. My book is teaching people how to do a whole bunch of things and how to manage your calendar better and how
That's
to block
right.
and prevent. I mean, you can already do this to some extent, but some AI tools, once you train them, they'll automatically do some of the email sorting, they'll do some of the calendar protection. In fact,
I know.
I turned this off because I found it a bit clunky. So I don't know whether it's improved or not, but there was a time when Outlook would say to me, "Would you like to book focus time this week? I've looked at your
Yeah,
diary and it appears you've
yeah,
got some pockets of time. Do you want me to protect that for you?" And
yeah.
so even then, that's letting AI do the thing that I would have said, don't forget to block your time in your
That's
diary,
right.
right? So thanks for
Yeah.
noticing that. I hadn't really thought about that. And I have always been an early adopter of stuff. I'm
Yeah,
interested
right.
in that stuff.
Yes.
I was reminiscing with someone the other day, just quick aside. Um, I remember when the Palm Pilot came out. You might be too young. Do you
Yes.
remember
No,
Palm
I
Pilots?
definitely, yep,
Oh
that's
my
right.
God. I had a Palm 5. And it
Oh,
was the most beautiful piece of technology. To this day, I still think it's the most beautiful piece of technology that I owned. And I became a super user of how to use Palm Pilots.
mm,
So I do make it my business to
yeah.
stay ahead of that because it is my business and
Yes.
I personally enjoy it. But for those who don't, my advice would be if the opportunity here, this is about creating space and capacity. If I can come back and harp on that one a bit. If
Yeah.
I can get some help writing tricky emails, if I can get some help processing a report that usually takes me hours, or generating, dare I say, and be careful about this one, but generating board papers or my commentary on something, rather than taking you a couple of days, it might take you several hours. What
Yeah.
time that frees up
Mm,
time to do better stuff, right? And in your calculation of 50-50 of people stuff, one of the things I've heard in leaders a lot is that the more senior they get, the more time is taken up with people stuff.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if we can
100%.
get some of the technical things taken care of using AI, and then we don't feel so pressured into shortcutting some of the people stuff because we
Mm,
feel like we're under pressure, that's a
abs
win.
yeah, 100%. Now, I'm so fascinated about your passion, your curiosity, and your focus on all things time and productivity. So I'm going to save red brick thinking until the very end, if that's okay, because that
Sure.
is your most recent book, and I want to hear more about that. But where is all this obsession with productivity, time, energy, space, capacity? Where does that all come from? Because it
Oh
clearly
gosh.
still lights you up, right? So this is genuine. This is coming from a really important place for you.
Look, I'm gonna say I was born into a military family. So my dad was in the Navy.
Me
We
too.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Navy
Um,
brat.
Navy brat, right. And so, well, we moved around a lot. I was always the new girl at school. I went to 9 schools in 9 years because if it wasn't because my dad was moving, it was because my dad was at sea and my mum was like a single mum. And so
Yeah.
she'd palm us to stay off with different members. And I don't have hang-ups about this. I'd go stay with grandma and so she'd enroll me in the school near Nana. And then I'd go and stay with my Auntie Kenlin. And so I'd go to Echuca and I went to Echuca South and Echuca East primary schools, right? So I got moved around a lot depending on where I was staying just to help mum out because she used to struggle. And so I think there's the natural thing that happens living in a world where you have structure and order as a primary,
Yes.
I don't know, primary fundamental belief, if you will, operating system.
Mm.
And having said that, my dad was a musician. So we had the military bit with very creative. And
Yeah.
so a sense of wonder, creativity. And my mum was in the Navy, but she was in the time when once she got married, you had to leave. So she wasn't there for very long. Um, but she's an artist and does beautiful handcrafts and watercolor paintings and stuff like that. So I've got a fair good dose of right brain stuff going on as well, if I want
Yeah.
to use that metaphor. And so I had the military upbringing, structure, order, get stuff done. You're never late for anything. My dad's
Mm.
saying is if you're on time, you're late. You know, there's no such thing as an excuse for being late, blah, blah, blah. That and I think I love stationery. So I
Oh,
think I don't know whether this has come as part of it as well. So when I'd be at school, I'm a good girl. I've always been a really good girl. So I'd get to a school and I'd be having to play catch ups all the time. And because I'm a good girl, people who had 6 months to do an assignment, I might have 3 weeks, but I'd still get it in on time. And it would be beautifully done with beautiful colored pencils and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
And so I think it was the structure order, the moving around, being a good girl and wanting to get all my stuff done on time and figuring out the systems really quickly. I'm pretty, would you say, adaptive generally in the
Mm.
world. I'm a pretty good
Yes.
adapter. I loved stationery, so I always loved playing around with the kinds of things that help you be productive.
Yes.
And then it started to be things that I found easy. So I remember I was in a job and I could get through a mountain of work from 9 to 5. And so
Mm.
I'd come in at 9 and I'd leave at 5. And I had bosses tapping me on the shoulder saying, "Excuse me, Donna, it seems that are a bit of a clock watcher." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you come in at 9, you leave at 5." I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "Oh, well, other people here work very long hours." I'm like, "All
Mm.
right." I still don't understand the point here. What am I not doing? And so even when they gave me extra work, I still got it done. I was just one of those people that could get stuff done.
Mm.
And so then people started asking me, "How do you do that?" And so I started paying attention to how I focused, how I did
Mm.
meetings, how I communicated with the people around me to get stuff done, because you always need
Mm.
people around you to get stuff done. Um, and I think one of the core things I discovered was it was a no-brainer for me to leave at a certain time. So I would decide what time I was going to leave. So let's say I was leaving at 5, and
Yeah.
I'd say I'm going to leave at 5, and I'd have to get all this stuff done by 5.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it done. Versus a lot of people go, I'll go
Mm.
home when I get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And then they let the world distract them or they get sidetracked.
Yeah.
So, the most productive day of the year for most people is the day before they go on vacation. And they're brutal with that. If you walk
Mm.
up to, like, Elena, if I walked up to you today before you go on holidays and I said, "Oh, you up for a yak?" "No,
That's it.
I'm going on holidays tomorrow," and brutal about getting
Yeah.
also. So it turns out I was a bit like that all the time.
Yeah.
Like people would say, "Donna, have you got 5 minutes?" I'd say, "Not right now. Can I come find you?"
Yeah.
And still friendly, still polite. People still like me. And then, of course, I started writing books about what I did.
Yeah. Amazing.
Mm,
And what lights you up when you go into an organization and start
mm.
working with them? What lights you up? What gives maintains and fuels that energy?
I think it's their energy. Like it's always much easier to go into an organization where people are begging for something new
Mm.
or something different. And that first question, "How do you feel about meetings?" And everyone hates and like, "Well, I reckon I can help you out." Boom, they just love
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
I love working with organizations where there's a willingness to want to make a shift.
Mm.
Where they're recognizing, back onto your kind of stuff, where they're recognizing that 2 or 3, it's kind of just tweaks of dials, slightly shorter meetings, adjusting how we spend our day, giving ourselves a 15% buffer, embracing a bit of AI, figuring
Mm.
out what can be removed. Like, and I've just run through the theme of all my last 5 or so books. Um, that has such a positive impact on their math,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's retention, right? Because people are enjoying the work more, or whether
Yes.
it's they have more time for the more important work, or they're
Mm.
saving money because they've decided to shut down a project that's just a zombie project that's just been sucking people's brains out, for years.
Mm.
That fills me with joy when I see people up for it.
I love that. I love
Mm,
that. I'm going to ask a fairly black and white question now.
okay.
What has, in your experience working with the vast range of organizations that you have, what has been what's the biggest precursor to failure? And what is the biggest precursor to success?
in applying my stuff
Oh, just
or
generally.
just generally?
Just generally.
Oh gosh, well, sorry, it's leadership. Um, is it? My brain just went, oh, gee, is it? Because that feels like a stock standard answer. And it's not black and white. You said it was a black and white. I was expecting to say yes or no. This is not black and white. This is very grey. I'm saying very grey.
Okay, great.
Okay, very grey. So I would say definitely leadership and how people show up. So like the story I just told you of the
Yeah, that's
CEO that
right.
says, I have free Fridays.
Yeah.
Why aren't you? And so then I would expect then the rest of the exec goes, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Because that's how I've always operated. So I would,
Yes.
look at what my bosses are doing and, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um, I remember the way I'll explain this is one of the projects I was working on, which was people
Yeah.
trying to get to a 4-day work week. And the thought of it for all of them was, how do we get to a 4-day work week when we're barely getting through our workload in 5 days? And
Yes.
so the first lever we pulled was meetings. So I actually think your meetings culture is a micro version of your actual culture, how you run meetings, what's
Mm.
expected, can people just book them willy-nilly? Are
Yeah.
people thoughtful? Is there a consciousness about that? So without going too spooky woo-woo about consciousness, I would say, have a good look at your meetings culture, and then you'll get a
Mm.
sense of where there's big opportunity to make some shifts.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant.
That took me a while to get there, but thank
No,
you.
no, no, but it was worth it. It was worth it. So tell me, there's so many things pinging in my brain right now, Donna. What have you
Maybe
done
we
for
could do
me?
a part 2 some
I
point
think
in
we're
the
gonna need
future.
to. I think we're gonna need to. Um, Now I've been told by my producer there's just under 7 minutes left, and God forbid we go over with the time person. That would be awkward.
That would be
Um,
awkward.
I was going to say, how does red brick thinking synthesize, your learning to date? But I'm wondering, given that little lever image that you just gave me, it sounds like maybe it's not. Maybe it's just another dial in your suite of tricks that you do. Tell us about red brick thinking, if and how it fits in with all of your other work, because it sounds like
Yeah.
there's quite a big body here we're
It
talking
really
about.
is. I didn't realize I'd been writing about red brick thinking pretty much since I started writing, really, but 25-minute meetings, if we'll talk about
Mm.
that. So it is a theme. So I would say red brick thinking is the philosophy, and every one of my other books is the
Ah,
how-to, is the manuals on
yes.
how to do it. So I don't have it with me because I am in the middle of moving house, but red brick thinking came about from a little Lego bridge. It basically just has a leg, a thing at the top and then another leg, and one leg is shorter than the other. And the test I would give people is, how do you fix the bridge? And most people reach for more bricks to top up the
Mm,
little short
mm.
leg that's there. Hardly anyone thinks about taking away the little red brick that's on the other side, which also makes the bridge even. And that's the challenge that I throw down to everyone and leaders, is when you're presented with a problem, is your instinct to add. And it
Mm.
is. Most of our instinct is to add. What would happen if you ask the question, is there something we could remove that would make this problem go away? So most organisations are fat with
Yeah.
policies and procedures and systems and all the things that we just keep adding, because here's a problem, add a system. Here's a problem, add a meeting.
Mm.
Here's a problem, add a committee. And so my question is, well, is there something we could take away that would make this go away? Or if we think about maths for a moment, there's a really good story in the book that comes from a matchbox company called Swan Vestas. And they used to have 2 striking strips, like a striking strip on either side of the
Yeah.
box. And someone said one day, gee, do we need 2? What would happen if we took one of the strips away? And, they didn't do any market research. They didn't go and ask their clients. They didn't have a 3-week offsite at some golf course in a fancy location. They just removed one strip. No one noticed. No customers complained. The only thing that changed was the bottom line. They saved a bunch of
Yeah.
money in production. And so it's not only about when I've got a problem, is there something I could remove? It's that
Mm.
where are we doing things that if we took it away, A, we might save, if not money, time, and
Yeah.
B, no one would even notice.
Wow.
Because at an individual level, and you probably know this, Elena, when you're as a small business owner, that we sometimes do things that no one else would know about. Like, why do I bother wearing pink glasses? And if I didn't wear the pink glasses, no one would care and no one would notice. Now, I happen to like pink glasses. But if it was costing me a lot of money or time or effort to wear the pink
Yeah.
glasses, then I could take those off and your listeners would have no idea that I even had them in the first place.
Yeah.
And that would save me and my hubby a bunch of money and time and effort for me, getting dressed every morning. So I think there's some things that are worth exploring at a micro level and right up
Yeah.
to the macro level around projects or systems or processes or whatever. So it's a solid read. Solid read.
It sounds amazing. Tell me where we get it very quickly, because I've got another content-based question to ask you.
Okay,
But
very
while
quickly.
we're
All good bookstores. It's still out in all the bookstores. It's still out in all the airports as well. So if anyone's still traveling,
brilliant.
by the time they listen to this, and of course you can get it on if you're in Australia, it's Booktopia is my preferred reseller, and Amazon. And then if you're out in the world anywhere, you can get it. It's a Wiley book, so it's everywhere where all good business books are sold, and my
Amazing.
website. If you can't get it anywhere, reach out to me.
Well, okay, so I was going to go there at the very end. How is the best place? People are going to be dying to get their hands on this stuff, to hear more from you. Other than coming back to part 2 of this podcast, how is the best way for people to reach out to you, contact you, and learn more about what you do?
Well, DonnaMcGeorge.com. I'm a shameless self-promoter on social media. So, and my name is unusual. So Donna McGeorge, you go Google me, you'll find all the things. But LinkedIn is probably my primary content stuff. And I'm fairly frequent share of tips and techniques and ideas on
Amazing.
LinkedIn. So that's the best way.
I love that. I love that. Final wrap up to wrap things up for this part 1 of said series. You just talked about micro, and actually it's made me think clearly the work that you do has application at the micro all the way up to the macro organization level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd just love to know, just sort of quick, because obviously at times people will listen to this and go, oh, this is so good, I would love to adopt this, but it's going to get blocked somewhere in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how do you make this, how do you make there to be a through line from micro to macro and vice versa?
Okay, so when I wrote my books, Red Brick Thinking is a bit different. All the others, I had an intention that no one would need permission to do anything that's in my books, that you could just go ahead and do them, right?
Yeah.
So you want to do a 25-minute meeting, you don't need permission. We don't need HR to do somebody policy around that. Just go do it. You want to protect the first 2 hours, you want to build some capacity in your life, you want to start experiment. AI was probably the only one where some organizations need a bit of permission.
Yeah.
Red Brick Thinking, because it's more of a philosophy than a how-to, it's the best thing I can get you to do is just to adopt the mindset of constantly asking, is there a red brick I could remove? And the more, I've always said the way to influence at any level in an organization is for you to do it and you to show positive results and you to say, and someone says, oh, you seem to get through a lot of stuff, very valuable, good stuff, and you don't seem stressed. How do you do that? Well, I red brick my world. I red brick my diary. I red brick my emails. Red bricking your email is as simple as just unsubscribing from all that crap.
Yeah.
Diaries, it's just don't go to every meeting you're invited to. You don't have to. Permission granted from your Auntie Donna. So it can be as simple as just red bricking your world. And then as you grow in your level of influence, can I tell you, you look like the smartest person around that table when you say, look, before we go talking about what we're going to start doing in addition, I'd just love to ask, is there anything we could remove, or red brick, is there anything we could remove that would also, or stop doing, or that could make a difference here? Just ask the question. Now, if everyone looks at you like you're a weirdo, okay, but don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I love that. This has been incredible. I think everybody needs an Auntie Donna. So thank you for being our Auntie Donna for this episode. It's been wonderful. There's been so much. You've shared so much, and obviously you have been very successful in yourself. But just some of the takeaways. The red brick thinking obviously is a philosophy, but your meeting culture being a microcosm of your company culture, incredibly powerful statement. I love that you love stationery and structure, because I love stationery. And I don't know if you watched The Rookie. It's a trashy TV police series, but there's this great quote from one of the officers, Lucy Chen, who talks about planners, and she says, "I love planners because it allows me to see what my life could be
Could look
like."
like. Yes, I love planners too. I have to tell myself every day, no, you don't need another planner. I even designed my own planner that I've used.
Whoa.
But I do remember, just very quickly, because I know like we've got seconds to go. Do you remember filofaxes? I've been thinking
Yes.
about having a filofax again. I do love me a good filofax.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Leather bound, the smell of leather.
Oh, the whole
Donna,
thing.
yeah. Thank you so much for today. This has been wonderful. I
You're
love your
welcome.
pink glasses, so please keep doing
Oh,
it.
definitely.
Thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again. Who knows? You might have written another 15 books by then. You seem to be able to get it
I
done
can bang
like
those
that.
suckers out. Yep.
That's it. But yes, thank you. This has been incredibly generous. All of your practical tips have been incredible. Congratulations on a wonderful career to date, and look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Eleanor. So happy to be on your show. I'd come back anytime, my friend, anytime.
Fabulous. And what a great chat with Donna, which leads us right into our listener question. And remember, if you want to submit a listener question, you can now email us at realmathofbusiness@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and we'll hopefully get it into a future episode. This week's listener question for this episode is from Amanda. Hi, Eleanor. I have been working on starting a business, but I'm struggling to decide if I should or not. How did you decide to go out on your own, and what should new entrepreneurs look out for? Thank you, Amanda. Well, that is a great question, and I'm not sure if I would follow my own advice in this one. I never anticipated that I would own my own business. I still struggle with the idea that I might be an entrepreneur. It's not an identity that I necessarily feel particularly comfortable with. Just it feels too kind of cool and sexy for me. What I can tell you is how I ended up working for myself, because this may be where your journey is at. As I said, entrepreneurship, small business ownership, not in my DNA. How I got here was really, it felt like the next stage in my journey. So it didn't feel like this big thing. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go start this business. Oh my goodness, it's going to be amazing, blah, blah, blah. It really did feel like it was the next step. And I guess to kind of cut a whole career journey story short, I spent a lot of time at KPMG in Sydney, and then I went and worked at KPMG in San Francisco for 4 years. And that's where I started doing a lot of the training, advising, and all the rest of it that I now do now. I then came back to KPMG Sydney, and I really, I enjoyed doing that sort of advisory in client engagement type work. And so I kept doing that. My skills in that area of consulting, coaching, advising, I guess I was working on those skills, training, etc. Then I had a couple of children while I was there, and then I knew on the other side of those 2 children that it was time for me to move out into the corporate world. And I think it was in that journey, or as part of that interview process actually, that I started to put some language to what I really love to do now, and that is help leaders be better, and really influence and have impact over the people side of the business equation, hence the real math of business. And so, I started in that corporate work, and as part of that corporate job that I had, I was able to work closely with a couple of consultants. And I really loved the pace in which we worked. And that was where I suppose, I'm even just thinking this as I'm saying it, I guess that's where a lot of the natural entrepreneurial attributes kind of had an opportunity to come out. So working fast pace, focused on outcomes, really ideating, and just kind of getting things done. Like we said, let's just go get shit done, right? Because it kind of felt like in that corporate setting, there was a lot of stuff that was getting caught up in just kind of the slowness and busyness that corporates can quite often have. So really got a flavour for those attributes. And there was a tipping point in my career where I was asked to apply for, I guess, a promotion internally in that organisation, but also I was asked by said consultant if I wanted to work doing some non-finance work in that kind of consulting space. The promotion that I was that I was given the opportunity to apply for was also non-finance as well. So it was really compelling. Both sides of that, both pathways were equally as exciting, intriguing, compelling. And I guess what I decided, and this is probably the finance person coming out in me, I went for the approach, which was, wow, I'm being given this opportunity to step out of corporate. I'm being given a bit of a soft landing. I'm not sure when I'll get that soft landing again. So it's probably the safest thing for me to do, to take it. So that was kind of how I decided to leave corporate. Now, what I will say, and I remember still to this day this being quite disconcerting, is that even though it felt like the natural evolution of my journey, stepping out of corporate and I guess, entering into the land of consulting, which was the precursor to my business, I had a lot of people in corporate saying to me, "Oh, Eleanor, you're so brave. How are you going to make sure you recoup your income? And, gosh, you must, how do you deal with the risk and all of that stuff?" Which all of those very good questions, by the way. And the reason why I say I'm not sure if I would take my own advice as I did it at the time, because I kind of was like, oh, I didn't really think about any of those things. I just I followed where I thought I should go. I think a smarter person would actually take into account all of those things. But that's okay. This is why we live and learn and we have mentors and all the rest of it. So it was, and so what I had to actively do was ignore all of those questions, which were coming from very good places. So I had to ignore their fears about my decisions, because I knew that if I kind of bought into those fears, that would be really scary. Now, interestingly enough, I did share those conversations with a fellow consultant of mine who I looked up to. And I said, "Oh, people are saying this thing." And she said to me, "Look, Eleanor, at the end of the day, anyone that sits as an employee in a corporation or in an organization can be laid off tomorrow. The CEO could come in and make you redundant tomorrow." She said, "Yes, clients can fire me tomorrow, but I can go and get more clients. Like, I know that skill of getting more clients." So she said to me, "To be honest with you, I actually think it's more risky to stay as an employee of an organization where all of your eggs are in that basket." Now, of course, she being a consultant and a business owner, that obviously works for her, but it was a helpful contra in just kind of balancing those questions that I was getting. So I guess my decision to go out on my own was really following what I enjoyed doing and what I felt I was best at. I knew I was not the sharpest finance mind in the shed, so I knew that it was unlikely I was going to keep following the path that I was on. And in fact, one of my bosses in my time in that organization actually said to me, "Please craft your own job description because currently your next role doesn't exist. We see you in it. We talk about you in our succession planning, but we kind of see that role doesn't exist." So um, that was kind of my journey. In terms of, what should new entrepreneurs look out for? So what I say is, obviously find that intersection between what you really love to do and what you're really good at, because as much as typically entrepreneurs have that attribute or that desire to have an impact or make an impact, you got to make money. Yeah, you do. You need to pay the bills. So with respect to, what you're really good at, and what you love to do, how are you going to make money from that? And then with respect to the money question, really thinking about your, I call it the runway. So what is the runway that you have to comfortably move into that transition? The other thing I would just say as well, so that's kind of at a more practical level, but sort of from a more, owning your own business, particularly if you have a corporate background, is not for the faint-hearted. So I would just make sure you've got a good coach or mentor that you can lean on and a good community of small business owners around you as well. So I'm not going to tell you, obviously, Amanda, whether or not you should do it. That decision is yours. What I would also recommend is you ask other small business owners who have made that transition, ask for their experiences, their advice, but ultimately you need to decide what works with you. And I wish you all the best with that. On the other side of making that decision for myself, I couldn't be happier, but you need to do what works best for you. So all the best with that. Thank you for listening to The Real Math of Business with Eleanor Bennett. If you like this episode, remember to subscribe for more content and stay on top of The Real Math of Business. I've been Eleanor Bennett. Thank you so much for listening.